I work at a small pharmacy that stays open until midnight, though not many customers come by so late. Most nights it's quiet. I'll stand behind the glass counter, organizing pills and restocking shelves, trying to pass the time until closing. The hum of the fluorescent lights is usually the only sound in the store. But then came the night I first heard those mysterious knocks on the door. It was just after 11 o'clock, and I was finishing up my usual routine setting aside new prescriptions to be filled in the morning. Outside, the parking lot was empty. That night felt strange from the start. The air smelled stale, and the street lights flickered on and off in the distance. Everything seemed still, almost too still. Out of the silence, I heard two soft taps on the glass door. They were so faint I almost missed them. When I looked up, I saw no one in the harsh glow of the security lights. My heart gave a small jump. Sometimes people come late, needing cough syrup for a sudden cold, or maybe painkillers for a headache. But I couldn't see a single figure on the other side of the door. I stepped carefully to the entrance, my shoes squeaking on the tiled floor. My breath fogged the glass as I peered outside. I saw the empty parking lot, the row of closed shops, and a few silent cars. The darkness beyond was thick, and the reflection of the pharmacy sign glowed on the glass. No one stood there. Still, I felt as if I was being watched. I returned behind the counter, tried to steady my nerves, and told myself it was a trick of the wind or a random bird pecking at the door. Maybe a single piece of gravel tossed by a passing car. But in my gut, I felt an unease that wouldn't go away. I tried to distract myself by counting the day's receipts and making sure the cash register was balanced. At about 11:30, the knocks came again. Two gentle taps. Then silence. This time, I hurried to the door and swung it open in one fast motion, certain I'd catch whoever was doing this. The warm night air brushed my face, and I scanned the lot. There was nobody. No footsteps. Not even the flash of a car's metal in the distance. It was as if the knocks had come from nowhere. I stood there for a minute, listening for any sign of movement. A light breeze stirred a piece of paper across the pavement. That was all. My heart thumped in my chest, and I realized how quiet everything was. It felt like the edge of the world had shifted just a bit, letting something eerie seep in. Finally, I locked the door again and went back inside, telling myself I was just tired. At midnight, I turned off the lights, locked the main door, and closed the security gate. I pulled down the metal grate that protects the glass front after hours. As I was about to leave through the side exit, I heard a voice, soft, almost like a breath call out from outside the main door. "Please," it said. "Help." I froze, every nerve in my body on alert. I slowly walked back to the front door, even though all the lights were off now. With the security gate down, I could only see the glow from the street lamps shining on the sidewalk. I waited, holding my breath, wondering if that gentle voice would speak again. But it didn't. My reflection stared back at me in the glass. I whispered, "Hello?" But no sound came in return. Eventually, I swallowed my fear and left the store, double-checking the locks as I went. Outside, the night air felt too still, and the sky above was moonless. I hurried to my car, fumbling with my keys. Before I could open the door, I heard a faint tapping sound against the closed metal grate. I spun around but saw nobody. My heart pounded. I climbed in my car and drove away faster than I should have, unsure of what was happening. By the time I got home, I felt drained, but I couldn't stop replaying that voice in my mind. The next night, I arrived at the pharmacy around 4 p.m. for my shift. During the day, everything felt normal. Customers browsing cough drops, children tugging at their parents' sleeves, cheerful chat about prescriptions. But as the sky grew darker, my nerves returned. Part of me dreaded that final hour of the night, when the store was empty and my senses were on edge. Sure enough, at around 11, with the store empty and only the distant hum of the street, I heard the same knock. 2 soft taps on the locked front door. My stomach churned, but I forced myself to approach. This time I saw a shape of figure briefly illuminated by the streetlight. It was too dark to see details, but it looked like a person. Naturally, I was scared. But they might need help, I thought. Maybe they're hurt. I unlocked the door and slid it open a crack. "Are you all right?" I asked, my voice unsteady. A faint whisper floated through the gap in the door. "Please," the voice said, "I need medicine." My hand tightened on the door handle. "What kind of medicine?" I asked, hoping for a straightforward answer like antibiotics or bandages. Instead, the voice just repeated, "Help me." There was a trembling quality to it, like fear or pain. I tried to see the person's face, but the overhead light was flickering, creating twisted shadows. A moment later, I felt a cold wind pass between us. I blinked, and the figure was gone. I stuck my head out the door, scanning the parking lot. No footstep sounds, nothing. My heart pounded. I locked up immediately, feeling a chill run through me. This was no simple late-night visitor. It felt almost supernatural. Unable to concentrate, I paced around the pharmacy, remembering old ghost stories I once heard. But a haunted pharmacy? It seemed silly, yet I couldn't find a better explanation. The next day, I told my coworker about the strange knocks. He raised an eyebrow but shrugged. "Maybe you're just overworked," he said. "Sometimes the pipes make weird noises at night. Could be anything." I knew he was trying to reassure me, but it didn't help. Night after night, the knocks continued, almost always right before closing. Sometimes I'd hear 2 short raps on the glass. Other times I'd hear a faint voice asking for help. And each time I opened the door, I'd see a shadow vanish. When it happened, my porch light outside the pharmacy would flicker. The store's lights dimmed just a bit, like they were reacting to something passing by. One evening, I decided to gather all my courage and wait behind the door. I turned off most of the interior lights, so the pharmacy looked closed. But I stood in the darkness, peering through a small gap in the blinds, determined to see who or what was knocking. The clock on the wall clicked toward midnight. I tried to keep my breathing calm, ignoring the anxious pounding in my chest. Then came those taps again. 2 gentle knocks. My heart leapt. Very slowly I peeked through the blinds. Under the flickering street lamp I saw the faint shape of a person wearing a long coat, shoulders hunched, as if in pain. Something about the posture, the arms wrapped around themselves, sent a shiver through me. They looked desperate. Not wanting to startle them, I quietly unlocked the door and opened it, stepping onto the sidewalk. I spoke softly. "Do you need help?" The figure turned slightly. I could see a pale face, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. I need. They began, but their voice trailed off. I moved closer, ignoring the alarm bells in my mind. This person might be injured, I thought. I couldn't just run away. Suddenly, the street lamp sputtered. The light grew dim. The figure stretched out a hand, and in the faint glow, I saw their fingers trembling. There was a dark stain creeping down the coat sleeve. Blood, perhaps. My mind raced. "Come inside," I said, stepping back to hold the door open. "I'll call an ambulance." The person gave a weak nod, then took a step forward. In that moment, the lamp behind them went out completely, plunging us into near darkness. I stumbled back into the pharmacy, groping for the light switch. My mind raced. Once I turned the lights on, I could see better and help them stop any bleeding. But as soon as the fluorescent bulbs flickered to life, the entrance was empty again. I ran outside, looking left and right, but the figure had vanished. The pavement shone under the dim glow of nearby lamps. Not a trace of blood, not a single footprint. I spent the rest of the night in a state of shock, replaying the scene in my head. I was certain I'd seen a wounded person. The next day, I checked the security footage, but the camera had turned off after 11:30 p.m. Everything after that was a blank screen. I had no proof of what happened, and I started to wonder if I was losing my mind. Over the following week, I tried to do my shift as normal. The knocks continued, but I was too afraid to open the door. Each night, it was the same pattern. 2 soft taps, then silence if I ignored it. The faint voice sometimes whispered, "Please," or "Help." But I stayed behind the counter, trembling. My coworker noticed how stressed I was, but didn't fully believe my stories. One Friday night, the pharmacy was unusually busy. A few families came in for last-minute medication, a young couple rushed to buy gauze for a cut, and an older man with a prescription was asking me questions. I felt relieved to have customers around. The presence of other people made me feel safer, less open to unseen horrors. Then, right before midnight, I stepped outside to take the trash bag to the dumpster. The night was quiet again, even though there were people still finishing their purchases inside. I felt suddenly alone. A chill breeze swept through the lot, stirring old receipts near the curb. As I approached the dumpster, there they were again, a faint figure standing at the far edge of the parking lot, dressed in that same long coat. My hands clenched the trash bag. "Hello?" I called, my voice echoing off the nearby brick walls. Like before, the figure lifted one trembling hand. I had the urge to walk closer, but I forced myself to stay put. Fear and pity wrestled inside me. This time, instead of turning away, the figure sank to the ground, as if collapsing. My heart hammered. I threw the trash bag aside and rushed to see if they needed immediate help. But when I reached the spot, I found nothing, just an empty patch of asphalt. It was as if they had melted into the darkness. I heard my coworker calling from the pharmacy entrance, "We're about to close. You okay?" I turned around, my panic clear on my face. I couldn't even find words, so I just nodded weakly. Once back inside, I helped lock up, but my mind was spinning with questions. Was that same figure truly appearing every night? Were they a spirit? A person caught in some endless loop? Or something else entirely? That night, long after we closed, I stayed behind with the security gate down, the doors locked, the lights off. I wanted to see if the figure would come again. 1:02 a.m., 2:02 a.m. passed, and nothing happened. The parking lot was totally quiet. A part of me wondered if I had, in some strange way, helped put the spirit to rest. Or if it was all a trick of my imagination, fueled by stress and isolation on these late shifts. But as the clock ticked toward 2:30, I heard it. A single knock this time, not two. It was so gentle it was almost comforting. Fear vibrated through my nerves, but curiosity won out. I approached the door and pulled the blinds aside. There was no one visible outside. I stood there, breath fogging the glass, waiting. Just as I was about to turn away, I heard it again, one soft tap, followed by the faint sound of someone breathing. I felt my blood run cold. I unlocked the door and opened it a crack, peering into the darkness. A quiet voice whispered, "All I needed was a little help." It trailed off, like a wind blowing away. I felt a pressure on my heart, a pang of sorrow or guilt. Had I failed to help someone who came to me in real need? Could they have been stuck between life and death, trying to find a way to medical care? Before I could speak, a chill wind swept past me, carrying that voice away. After a few moments, the parking lot lights brightened again, and I stood there alone. No footsteps, no figure, just a lingering ache in the air, as if a presence had finally departed. The next days at work were peaceful. No more knocks, no more ghostly whispers. A few times, I thought I saw a flicker by the glass door, but it was just my mind playing tricks. Still, I can't forget the feeling that someone or something came to our pharmacy night after night, seeking help it could never fully receive. Sometimes, late in the evening, customers come in with their own problems, headaches, fevers, anxiety, and I'm quick to offer comfort now. I listen harder and try to show more kindness, because I remember the faint voice that asked for medicine, for help, and then vanished without a trace. Even now, long after those events, when the clock nears midnight, I'll feel a small prickle on my arms, as if the air itself remembers. A part of me wonders if, on some quiet night, I might hear that gentle knock again. And if I do, will I be brave enough to open the door once more? Will the figure appear, or will it remain just out of sight, forever asking for help that never quite arrives? All I know is that our pharmacy has never felt the same to me. The lights, the shelves, the tile floors, every corner seems to hold a shadow of that night. And though I may never solve the mystery of who knocked at the door, I'll always carry the memory of that quiet voice calling through the glass, hoping someone would answer.